You're listening to the Higher Grade Help Podcast, tips and strategies for service providers. This podcast is designed to help service providers build strong teams and grow their businesses. Hosted by me, workforce development industry expert, Sina Martin. Each episode will cover a range of topics related to hiring and team building in the service industry. From finding top talent to conducting effective interviews, this podcast will provide insights and strategies to help service providers hire and retain the best team members. If you're looking to grow your business through effective hiring and team building, this podcast is for you. Okay, today is a day to celebrate. I am back with some fresh material, some fresh episodes for the podcast. I took some time off and I'm rested, refreshed, feeling like a new woman. And we have a lot of things to talk about. There's been some news, some updates, things going on that clearly communicate why we should be focusing on culture and team empowerment right now. And today's episode is going to dive into that space a little more. So welcome back. If you are a returning listener of the podcast, I'm so excited and thankful that you are back here for another episode, or if you're new, welcome. Thank you for spending time and allowing me to enter your space. And I hope you enjoy some of the topics I have coming out over the next few episodes. Okay, but today we're talking about creating a culture of trust and transparency. And I think that it's about damn time we talk about Miss Lizzo. Okay? Now, this is not to bash Lizzo. Let me just, disclaimer, let me say that for her fans out there. I know a lot of you are disappointed. I know you're feeling let down, hurt. I'm in a different space with that because I know that celebrities, and really not just celebrities, but anyone who's in the public eye, they don't always show you who they truly are behind the perception. And that's a good thing, and it could be a bad thing. Sometimes they do it for the sake of privacy, but sometimes it's an ego thing as well. So that's another conversation. But this episode is not at all to bash Miss Lizzo or her production company or any of that. But I want to get into this because I think there's an opportunity for us to truly uncover here what has gone on in her culture and how we can learn from some of the things that have come out, right? From her ex-dancers, from people who have worked with her. I'm not going to go into like all of the details of it. Please, you can look it up. It's all over, the nightly news. You can read about it. But what I want to do is go into the team and the culture lessons that can be uncovered from this situation. So for those of you who don't know, Lizzo basically published this like dance series, I guess about a year or two ago. How long was that? I guess that was about 2 years ago, right? At this point. And it was called Watch Out for the Big Girls. I watched it. It was well put together, right? Like it was entertaining. It was inspiring. Of course, I don't agree with all of, some of the things that were in it and said and done, but all in all, it was a well put together production piece. And watching the show, I bonded with Ari, with Crystal, and some of the other girls who ultimately won the end of the show. For those of you who don't know, or you might be, kind of new to me, I very much am into like culture and, what's going on with different shows. I watch those type of competition shows. All of us, at some point tuned into like America's Next Top Model. So that's kind of like my thing. And so watching the show, I really bonded with the girls. And to hear that less than what are we, 12, let's say 18, 20, 24 months later, that these very same girls, these young girls, who won the show, got the opportunity, went on tour, are now coming out and saying that, the culture was toxic. It was a hostile work environment. There was all types of harassment going on, between sexual harassment, racial harassment, religious harassment. I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear, particularly from, like I said, like I keep saying Ari, but I really vibe with Ari. I liked her a lot. And so to see her crying on the nightly news, talking about the culture, that was a little bit tough. And I understand why they're heartbroken. I can't imagine what they actually went through, first of all, being a dancer is extremely difficult. And I'm going somewhere with this, so I'm getting to my main point, but I'm just like breaking down the preliminary information that you need to know in case you weren't aware of what was going on with this. And then I'm going to tell you why it's relevant for you. But that type of work, being a dancer, and when I say a dancer, I mean there's different types of dancers, not shaming anyone. Whatever you do is what you do. But so I'm clear, the type of dancing that they were doing was for obviously being background dancers for Lizzo on her tour, on different shows. She goes and does sold out shows, festivals. She's a Grammy artist. So that is back-breaking work. Anybody who knows about the music industry, that is one of the hardest industries to work in, hands down. Anyone who knows that, or like me, you either were in it at a point in your life or wanted to be a part of it, or in my case, my husband has been in the music industry almost a decade now. So just knowing like the hours that go into that work is serious. It's something serious. And so it was heartbreaking to hear it, but seeing the quick turnaround of essentially employees saying this was a hostile work environment, this was a toxic place for me to be, and they took it as far as taking it to court, was shocking to me. Now, this is something I've been saying all of this year, and I'm going to keep preaching this. And this is a great example of what I mean when I say culture is your core. Culture is your core. Business is not all about the accolades you win, the sales, the numbers, the metrics, the amount of people that you can help or inspire or impact or serve, whatever word you want to use. It's not all about the numbers, the results. It's also about the camaraderie, the culture that you build among the people who actually work for you. And I'm practicing, what I'm preaching here, right? Because like I said, my team is small. However, we're small but mighty. This is something I strive daily, and I'm still working on this. I'm not 100%, at the level I want to be at with this. This is something I'm working on myself, but I strive to be that with my team. Culture is your core. You can mask up a toxic environment, but if your teammates feel unsafe, if they feel unsure, if they feel criticized or in harm's way, that's going to come to the surface every single time. It does not matter if you're a small business owner from, Rhode Island, or you're in the Carolinas, or you're in New York, you're considered a small business. It doesn't matter if you're, the local doula, right? Or if you're a Grammy award-winning artist. It does not matter. What goes on in the dark in your culture is going to come to light. It will always come to the surface. So that's the first thing. When I say your culture is your core, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And of course, we all know Lizzo has, made a statement, and she's coming out and denying allegations and all of that. That's Again, not here to, talk about her character or her. That's a whole nother conversation. That's her decision. However, that further speaks to the culture that her employees feel unsafe because when they speak up, their voices aren't being heard. Their experiences aren't explored. Forget validated. They're not even explored. Because immediately a bad response, was posted on social media to shut down what these very young girls said after the whole world saw them willingly enter into a work agreement that they knew they were going to have to daily live up to this very famous artist's expectations. If you watched the show, you saw how Crystal and Ari and some of the other girls got down. Like, they were willing to put it all on the line. That's another conversation. I don't fully agree with it, but they were willing to go above and beyond to please this woman. And so that's speaking to a culture where the leader or the face of the company or the CEO, whatever you want to call it, is Caesar, and everybody else has to bow, and everybody else has to accustom to, right, and do what this individual wants them to do, regardless of the repercussions, regardless of the reactions, or regardless of how it makes you feel as a human being. And we saw that in some of the allegations that came out, particularly what she asked Ari to do with that exotic dancer. It's unbelievable. And so what I want you to, I'm just going into a couple of tips here. And this episode is more like off the cuff. It's not as structured or, my 5 tips or whatever I typically would do on the episode. But I kind of wanted to come back swinging into this second season of the podcast with this open floor conversation. And when I say open floor, you are more than welcome to share your thoughts with me, share your comments on this. I would love to talk to you about this. Just come on over to my Instagram. Come hang with me in my Instagram stories. It's a gang of us over there, and we keep in contact pretty much every day. So come on over to my Instagram stories and tell me how you feel about this, or what's coming up for you as we talk on this episode. But I want to go into just a few takeaways that I have as someone who is a workforce development expert. I do this work on a daily basis, and I'm always evaluating and analyzing teams and cultures and thinking through how to make cultures better, and integrating, company visions and the visions of decision makers in companies into their teams on a daily basis. I do this work from small businesses to, businesses who are doing 7 and 8 figures, soon 8 figures. And so this is something that I can guarantee you was told to Miss Lizzo over and over and over again, that if she didn't check herself at the door, okay, her attitude, personality, the treatment of her team members, this is not the first time this came to the surface. This is just a result of a toxic culture that started with the toxicity of the leader who breeded the culture. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, as my grandma would say, right? Like, the boomerang is here. What you put out is exactly what you get back. So I want you to think through this. Like, what type of leader are you? How do you inspire people who work with you, or people who show up to work, whether it's hybrid, whether it's virtual, whether you guys are a totally 100% remote team, or you may have a hybrid situation where they come into the office a few days out the week, but they have the ability to work from home. Whatever your setup is for your organization, for your team, I want you to think through how you are encouraging them to cultivate the culture that you want to work in. Because like I said, culture is your core. It starts with you. You have to stand on what you stand for. That's my first micro tip, is what I'm gonna call it. My first micro tip. You have to stand on what you stand for. And one thing we can say for certain about the world today and learning human beings and working with different personalities, one thing we know for certain, people aren't always what they seem. What you see is definitely not what you're going to get. That's the first thing. Because in every situation, humans tend to put their best foot forward. We all want to give our best first impressions, especially if a camera is rolling. We want you to see the best side of us in a world that is governed by perception and social media and highlight reels and what looks good. You truly won't see a person's true personality until a challenge appears. That's when a real person comes out. When the shit gets hard. When a challenge comes. The first time a difficult conversation or an emergency arises. When a challenge appears, that's when you're going to see who the real person is. That's first and foremost. So what that means is you have to move with that knowledge in mind. And standing on you have to stand on what you stand for. I fully believe in that. The first question is, what do you stand for? Remember we talked about this back in the episode where I was talking about creating your company vision, right? Creating a clear vision for your company. I said you want to create your morals. Like, what are the morals of the company? What are those beliefs that you have? What are those values? What are those values that are non-negotiable, that you will not deter from, and that no matter what, each person on your team is required to operate according to these values? Your culture is your core. It starts with you. If you want to listen to that episode, it's back on episode 4, when I talked about creating a clear vision for your team. But this is why. Because if you don't have clear values for your company that stem from what you stand for as an individual, then your people have no idea how they're expected to conduct themselves. And with people not always being, they're not always showing who they truly are, or things not always appearing the way you thought, you have to set the standard. Your company's like your house. Your company is like your house. I was having this conversation today with a family member about, different kids in the family coming over to our houses. And she was saying, she was like, the whole family know how I do. You can't come to my house with your kids acting a fool. Like they can't come over here jumping on my white couches and, tearing up I have my values. I have my rules. This is my house. And so I'm going to say the same thing to you. Your company is your crib. That's your house. People can't just walk into your house with their shoes on if you don't allow shoes on your special floor or in your carpet. You don't want certain bacteria being dragged into your house. If you want people taking their shoes off at the door, the shoes come off at the door. That's not negotiable. This is your house. This is your rules. And so this is the thing where when I hear this story about Lizzo and her team and what's going on, and then when I think about how you can relate this to your leadership journey and this evolution of you becoming this new person who leads people in a way that inspires them to not just action, but results and growth to another phase, to another place where you've never been before. You're elevating everything about who you are, but not just you. You're helping the people who work with you on a day-to-day basis also elevate everything about them. This is a transformation for everyone involved. And so me hearing this story about Lizzo and her team and her dancers, it makes me think of that. Like, the dancers are saying, I know you guys can't believe this because this person is all about body positivity. But maybe that was the perception that she wanted everyone to have of her. Because clearly what she stands on is not the exact same thing as what she's saying in the public space. And I'm not bashing, we're just analyzing the situation. But what she stands on could be mean girl mentality. It could be, based on what's being said and what's being alleged. There's no proof of this yet. All of this is alleged, right? Not making any accusations over here. I'm just going off of, these multiple women who are witnessing an experience that they all have had about this individual, and not just the individual, but this environment, this toxic work environment. That makes me say their CEO, their leader, did not stand on what she stand for, or did not stand on what she said she stood for, or what she stood for is now finally coming to the surface. So you, as the leader, just like I, as a leader, we all have to go get a mirror and look in the mirror and say, am I standing on the value that I actually stand for? Am I walking what I'm talking? That's the first takeaway that I got from this. Another takeaway, and these are actually 2 for 1. The next takeaway, back up. Go ahead, we can erase this part out. I'm going to pause right here. We're going to pay a couple of bills, and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. The next takeaway from this entire situation is listen to your team with constructive communication. Here's what I mean by that. Listen to your team with constructive communication. Now, it was said that multiple times throughout the, I guess they were practicing, like for upcoming shows, or I don't know the details of when these things were said, but it was said from a few of the dancers that they received body shaming numerous times during, I guess it was during different shows or maybe the practice. You may know like the details more than I do. I didn't go all into the depth of that. I just listened to the report, listened to their actual interview of the ex-dancers, and then read a couple of articles on it. So it sounded like during practice, or as the girls were coming to, coming to work on different days, negative comments were made about their body, about their appearance, about their size, about their weight, which is kind of crazy to me because they were hired on with the intention of this being for, full figured, full body, curvy girls. Shout out to the curvy girls, right? Curvy girls stand up, right? So, I mean, that was kind of crazy to me too, because I'm like, how do you put out a call for someone to come to you for a certain, with a certain qualification, and then turn around and bash them for having that exact qualification? And it's not to say they were gaining weight or whatever. I don't know what the details of it were, But my takeaway from it, based on how the ex-dancers, and I should say ex-dancers, based on how the ex-dancers explained it, is that they weren't being listened to. And beyond them not being listened to, the communication was very hostile. It was, borderline verbal abuse. And so what you could take from this is that your people, your contractors, your employees, your team members, they're going to tell you at some point how they feel. And I think this part right here is what so many quote unquote leaders, managers, upper level executives miss, is that they don't understand how to help their teams feel heard. It has become a culture in this country, my opinion, but it has become a culture in this country where you work and you work harder and you are punished for speaking up or speaking out. And all that's done is that it has made people speak out more and more and more. Because who enjoys being oppressed? Who enjoys being silenced? No one. So if you have a culture in your company where you say, and let me say this too, just because you have a team meeting, or you get up on your, high horse with your microphone and you say, this is a safe environment. Feel free to tell us at any time if you are having an issue. We want to hear how you really feel. This is a safe place. I want you to be comfortable sharing when you have a dilemma, or when you have feedback that can help us improve. I hate that one. Feedback that can help us improve. That's not about me. That's about you. Please don't say that to your people. But just because you get up on your microphone and you give like a cookie cutter announcement that this is a safe space, that's not how you make a safe space. And let me say something too. People can feel when that's not genuine. Have you ever had a boss that did that to you? Yeah, more than likely, right? So what this means is that listening to your team by providing constructive communication. You can erase that. Let me say it over. What this means is listening to your team by providing constructive communication is an ongoing practice. That is an environment you create. Yeah, that is a part of your culture. That's a recurring process where humans have to feel like my voice is valued here. And do you know how you can create that a good way? I'm gonna give you a little bit of like what my paid clients get for a second to help you do this. I'm gonna just give you a little snippet, a little taste of it. Yeah. How you can create that how you can practice that on a repeat basis is that you be the example of that in front of your team members. Share with them when you have a issue with something, or you see, something that was done that you dislike, or there's an improvement that can be made in a certain process and you want to bring it to the table, even if it's an uncomfortable conversation. You be the example. It's not really rocket science on this, right? Like, you don't need to, join a coaching program for me to tell you that, right? You be the example. And the more you open up and show that you're a real human being that can have these type of conversations without, or let me say it this way. The more you prove that you can be this kind of person while having emotional intelligence, your team members will be inspired to follow and do the exact same thing. You become a mirror for the kind of team that you want. You become the example of the type of culture you want. And if you don't even know how to be the person that can provide constructive communication, say that. When you have areas that you are lacking in or you're working on, I'm not saying put everything on the table so that it can be taken advantage of, or people can see it as a weakness. But there's bits and pieces that you want to show your team a glimpse of. Give them a little glimpse into the window and say, you know what, this is an area where I'm developing right now. This is a part of my leadership development right now. I'm not the best at constructive communication, but I'm willing to learn this skill with you all beside me because we are a team. And the more you see how that sound, even that language, the more you do that, that's giving them the understanding, the inner knowing that, hey, I'll be listened to here. Hey, my voice is valuable here. Yeah. And that clearly is missing from this whole entire, alleged lawsuit with this whole thing with the girls and with Lizzo. That's completely missing. You could hear just how in the communication, in the allegations, you could hear that doesn't exist. And so I want you to take away from this basically the warning that it doesn't matter how big or how small you are in the public eye. This could happen to anyone, because when you're dealing with teams, you're dealing with people. When you're talking about culture, you're talking about human beings. You're talking about psychology. So listen to your team by giving them constructive communication. That was my next takeaway. Last thing I will mention about this, and I think overall, just the overall picture here is that I'm not going to go into like I'll leave the HR side of this for the HR experts. I'll, leave that piece of it to them. But what I took away from this as a workforce specialist, someone who specifically has expertise in the development of the people that work for you, okay? Your teams, your team operations, boosting the efficiency of the team that works for you, small teams or medium teams, okay? That's the area I'm going to focus on with this. Anything else, I'll leave to the other podcasters to address it. But the last, I guess, point I want to make on this is be aware of the obstacles that are going to come up when you don't invest into your culture. The obstacles are a lack of buy-in from your team members. Okay? Employee engagement that is very low. Third, creating a work environment that nobody wants to work in. And then fourth, the potential of having a PR nightmare, especially if you are a company that relies on good press to push your business forward, which I think is a lot of us, but some of us more than others actually rely on good press, actually, benefit from, well, let me not say that because everybody benefits from use of the media. But some businesses, and you may be one if you're listening to me right now, you may be a business where the media is a large part of your strategy. That's a large part of your marketing, of your visibility, of your brand awareness, of your client acquisition. That might be a large part in your retention. Staying in the media, having good PR, and you use that to benefit your clients. It may be all of the above. But if that's you and public opinion affects your bottom line profit, be aware of the challenge you're going to have if you don't invest in your culture. This entire story is a it's a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when you don't invest in your culture. And you just expect everyone to accustom and cater to how you, the person, the individual, expects things and does things and wants it to be done. It ain't about you when you're a business owner. You're creating something outside of you that's bigger than you. And it has to be a welcoming, warm environment if you want people to want to work there. I hear from my clients all the time this fear of people leaving the team. They always say to me, they say, Cena, I'm training, these new interns, or I'm training these new, employees, and I'm afraid of investing all this time into them just for them to turn around and leave. Well, do you know how you can just about guarantee they won't leave? Is if you invest in your culture. Invest in the work environment so that so the work environment becomes a place where they want to stay. They know deep down whether they'll be able to get this somewhere else or not. They'll know what's best for them. But if you take the time to invest in your culture, just as much as you invest in your PR, your marketing, your client delivery, take some time before this gear is out and make a real plan to invest in your team. A real plan to invest in your culture. There's a couple ways you can do that. I have two ways actually where I can help you to invest in your culture. One, if you're interested, you can get the mini course that I have available on creating your company culture. Just head on over to highergradehelp.com/culture. You can grab the mini course, or, and the mini, let me back up. Go ahead, erase that part out where I just said or. And we can pick up right here. Now, the mini course is just what it sounds like. It's a straight to the point team solution. If you want the strategies, if you want the foundation, if you want the structure to build up your company culture within a weekend, you can do that with the mini course. I focus in on it. I give you the game plan. I give you the roadmaps. I give you the templates. You'll have everything you need, the handouts for your team members, right? You can put your logos on it. You can brand it for your team. This is not for you to resell, okay? For anybody trying to, we're not doing that over here, okay? Everything is IP'd up, lawyered up. But, we have the templates in there for you to add your company identity on it, and then you can use it as a training tool, right, for your team. Okay, and there's special pricing for that too. You'll see that over there on the page. If you want to use it as a training course for your whole team, you could purchase the license to do that, or if you want to use it just as the mini course, to go through the mini course yourself and then go ahead and implement that with your team, with your OBM, you are more than welcome to explore either option. That would be a good option, a quick solution for you. You could get the Create Your Company Culture mini course at highergradehelp.com/culture. Or if you want a longer term solution and you're more interested in like a CEO leadership development program, then I would recommend that you join the wait list for my signature program, Exponential. Exponential will give you everything you need. You'll work with me close-knit for about 6 months to a year, and we will dive in on a more intimate basis. into your company culture. We'll do an audit of your processes. We'll look at your current team structure, team operations, and we'll make a very strong game plan to not only develop the culture, but to develop you as the leader who can then turn around and have the tools and the skill sets necessary to effectively lead your people to $1 million team. So depending on what option is best for you, I would suggest you grab either the Creating Your Company Culture mini course or join the waitlist for Exponential. The doors will be open into Exponential at the time that you're listening to this podcast. It'll be open like within a week or two. So I would join the waitlist. That way, once the doors open, you will be the first to be contacted to discuss next steps for your application. Okay. So please remember, just remember the takeaways I discussed in this episode. Okay, stand on what you stand for. Listen to your team by providing constructive communication. And most importantly, don't forget, your culture begins with you. It begins with you. You know, we'll keep an eye on this story. This is the first time I talked about culture and relevant topics on the podcast. So let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you want me to do more shows like this where we kind of dig into like culture and what's going on and current events and analyzing what we can take away from them. If you are feeling this, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review over on Apple, share it with a couple of friends, and let me know over on IG if you are feeling this, okay? All right, so thank you so much for listening today, for tuning in, and I will see you for the next episode.